we brush our teeth before we go out and see people throughout the day, right? And I kind of talk about meditation like brushing the mind. You wouldn't go out into the world with a smelly mind, would you? And meditation doesn't need to be sitting like a monk on a mountain closing your eyes. It can be whatever it is to you. It could be priming like Tony Robbins. It could be like that. It could be literally drawing some art. It could be listening to music. But how do you stop and nourish yourself and align your mind so that you choose your reactions throughout the day rather than just falling for the entire day? If you look at it symbolically, my body wouldn't let me move forward anymore out of bed unless I changed the way that I was living. And that meant changing the way that I was eating, changing the stress that I was under, because chronic stress, as you would be aware, just switches on the immune system. It sends it into overdrive. And I was stressing myself by working 50-hour weeks, and then I'd stress myself by going out on the weekend and drinking and taking drugs, and it was just burning the candle at both ends. It was just destruction. As humans, one of our biggest things we do is forget. And every time you go back into addiction, I believe it's because you've forgotten. Because I did it 1,000 times with alcohol and drugs. It's like, I'm not going to drink again. I can imagine, think about how many people do that. They have a hangover, I'm not going to drink again. This is just horrible. And then next weekend, they're smashed and they're on the ground.
I woke up in beast mode with my girl.
Everybody, welcome back to the Raw Cave Show. Zach Dean here with Peter Williams. Peter, thanks for jumping on, mate.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh, fist pumping?
Yeah, fist pump.
Nice, nice, nice. It's always different, you know, not in person. I used to do these interviews in person, so technology is just that little bit different. Everybody, I'm so excited for this interview. Peter Williams is a hypnotherapist here in Sydney, health coach, and works with people with anxiety, depression, and substance abuse. And Peter and I met at an event that another friend ran called Immerse here in Sydney, and it was a full-day event, and I got to meet Peter and his girlfriend, his partner, and a whole bunch of other people. And I was just blown away by Peter's stance in understanding the mind and how driven he is to help other people. And so how passionate you are, dude. So I was like, dude, I want to interview you, get you on the show. And you're like, sure, man, let's do it. So it's been like a couple of months organizing this. And what I'm really excited about for anybody watching is, yes, sharing your story of, you'll get into it a little bit more, but I'm fascinated by the mind and reality, and you know how what we see in our mind's eye creates our own reality, whether that's you know, manifesting our own reality, or whether it's addictions for certain things, food, sex, feelings, worry, anger, all these different things we're feeling. And I think that this interview is going to, I guess, uncover a bit of understanding around these topics. So I'm really pumped for it. I'm always learning, so I'm excited to learn from you too, man. So yeah, just want to jump into it. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, so I got into hypnotherapy as a result of going to Unleash the Power Within, a Tony Robbins event. I know that you've been there as well. And it kind of come into my atmosphere to look at the subconscious mind. I wanted to create change in my life. And I had, you know, done so many things, been to many activities and grown, but I still couldn't get to that next level. And when I went to the Unleash the Power Within, I felt the most powerful I'd ever been in my entire life. And this was because, as you would be aware, Tony uses lots of positive psychology techniques as well as utilizing the subconscious mind. So as a result of going to that, I met my incredible mentor, and she saw the potential in me as I had finished up my health coaching qualification. I said, I want to start serving people now. I want to be out there giving back to the community in the areas that I've been challenged through myself. So she basically offered and said, I want you to come into the business. So I went and got qualified, and I've been practicing ever since. But it was after a really long journey, a big history. I was a personal trainer. In the past, I was studying exercise science. I've had many different hats as I've jumped from area to area in my life, trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And then, so today you're working with people specifically around these areas that you're talking about, anxiety, depression, substance?
Yeah. So I have a real passion because I came from that route. Like I felt the depths of depression and the pain that you can experience from it. I've felt the depths of anxiety and the fear and the nerves that you can have from that, where it literally got to the point of me ending up in a drug and alcohol rehabilitation center. And previously I would have been scared to admit something like that, but now I'm proud that by me shining my light and being authentic, it allows others to do the same. So that's why I have a real passion for those guys and girls that are gripped by substances that they don't understand their relationship with, and they're kind of getting bounced around the medical system. That was my experience in lots of my life, lots of bouncing. So with the hypnotherapy, I want to shortcut people, stop them from having to bounce around from practitioner to practitioner treating symptoms. What's the underlying cause? What's underneath the surface that keeps brewing and affecting you on a daily basis?
That's so awesome that you can share this, dude. Obviously, you know, that's not an easy thing, having that transition, but it's such a common thing that you are now wanting to voice to the public, which is awesome. So tell us, bring us into the mind of where you were, you know, maybe just before you went to rehab, and then how did you get out, and what have been some of your strategies on you know, transforming your life?
Yeah, so the mindset that I had going in had been developing since my teens, and I used to experience a lot of anxiety and a lot of nerves and a lot of shyness. So I eventually went to a doctor because I said, this isn't right. Why am I like this all the time? And he was an incredible doctor doing his duty of care, and he said, let's put you on antidepressants. Let's put you on that. And at the time, it suppressed the symptoms, but it didn't treat the cause, which was underneath. So I still had levels of anxiety, and I would drink and take drugs. And particularly at that time, it was a lot of alcohol. And I drank and took so much to a point where I just basically lost control of my life in a way. And got to such a low point where then I was admitted into that, and I went into that facility. So that's essentially how I ended up there. And then the way out was a long journey. It was at times I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I couldn't understand how to get myself out of it. And in rehab, they've got some good programs, some good facilities available to people. They run things like meditation there. They run classes where you talk about what the cause is. They would take us to AA and NA, Alcoholics Anonymous, for those of you who don't know what it is. And that was pretty effective at the time, but it still didn't treat the cause. Whenever I'd go into environments that would stimulate those old patterns, which I'll get onto, patterns underlie most things. Whenever those patterns would get triggered, I'd fall back into those old negative behaviors. So fast forward after that, I felt really good when I did exercise, and I know you'd feel the same yourself, how positive it makes you. It really changes your state. And I wanted to share that with people. So I started to study fitness. And that's what I explain is one of the ways for you to get out of that rut. What fitness gave me, that study, it gave me a sense of connection. I suddenly had a new crowd of people who had similar interests to me, and it gave me a sense of purpose, because before that I didn't really have any purpose. I was just drifting along. So purpose and connection got me on my journey to healing. And then I got into personal training, and I was working pretty hard. I was training pretty hard. I used to compete in jiu-jitsu competitions. I got up to blue belt. I don't know if you've done martial arts before, but it requires such good discipline, and it's such good physicality to it. So I did jiu-jitsu, I was doing kickboxing, I was doing weights, but I didn't get to the root cause. It was still there under the surface. I just created another persona on top of that. And everyone was like, this is Peter, he's the happy guy, he's the outgoing guy. But underneath the surface was always that shyness, that anxiety that I would suppress with alcohol or drugs or exercise. I still went back to them, because although in rehab they told us about strategies to manage it, they didn't get into the subconscious mind. They didn't get into what the cause was underneath. So throughout the personal training, I was like, okay, I want to become an exercise physiologist. I had a real passion for movement, and I was surrounded in that environment. I worked in an exercise physiology studio for quite some time. And then throughout this process, I was still training and partying hard that I developed an autoimmune disease. And it was an inflammatory arthritis across my whole body. And at the time, it was painful. It was sad. But looking back and how I relate to it now, it was my ultimate gift. And it was literally a grace from the universe, because with that happening, I really had to stop, reflect, and change my trajectory. It was like, if you look at it symbolically, my body wouldn't let me move forward anymore out of bed unless I changed the way that I was living. And that meant changing the way that I was eating, changing the stress that I was under, because chronic stress, as you would be aware, just switches on the immune system. It sends it into overdrive. And I was stressing myself by working 50-hour weeks, and then I'd stress myself by going out on the weekend and drinking and taking drugs. And it was just burning the candle at both ends. It was just destruction. Yeah. So then I went through the medical merry-go-round, and this is a thing I'm passionate about shortcutting people from. I went to gastroenterologists, I went to rheumatologists, I went to sleep specialists, I went to naturopaths, dietitians, nutritionists, and no one could give me the answer. It was still just, you've got that for life, take these drugs, good luck to you. And I just thought, this doesn't feel right. I'm 24, 25, and I've been told that for the rest of my life, I'm going to be on a drug, whether it be antidepressants and autoimmune suppressants like anti-inflammatory drugs. So eventually I stumbled onto the health sphere, which you're in, and I started to learn about the impact of the gut, the power of the gut on your immune system, the power of the gut on your mood. So I started to look at dietary approaches to that and protocols, such as the autoimmune protocol, which is under the paleo template. And when I started to apply these principles, my joints would go down. They weren't as painful anymore. And I started to feel better. And doctors would be like, oh, that's unusual. They wouldn't really acknowledge or understand what was going on. Yeah. So I started to improve my health, but here still wasn't improving. I felt better in my body, but I still had that low self-worth, that low level of anxiety that was still there. And going fast forward to where I essentially got with this story with my mentor, once I experienced hypnotherapy, I went into habit for social anxiety and shyness and worrying. I used to be a chronic worrier. I had the therapy, and then once I walked out, whenever I'd go into those situations, it was no longer there. And I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain it. And I didn't need to. Really, at the end of the day, I suddenly had a power that I had never experienced or I hadn't experienced in a really long time.
Incredible.
Yeah, so that's essentially how I got from that breaking point to where I am now. But as Tony Robbins said, I just kept changing my approach. I'd try this. If it doesn't work, change your approach. And I just did that subconsciously. I read and I learned and I listened to podcasts. I know you're probably into podcasts with all the information that you get from them. Listen to thousands of hours of podcasts. Read like heaps of books on it as well. So knowledge is power, as you would know as well, but transformation is key. And once I took the transformation and used that knowledge, that's when my life changed.
You've touched upon so many interesting points, and there's so many different directions we can take this in. This is awesome. So I want to know though, I want to get into a few different things, but there's a lot of people that do go to the doctors, they get on antidepressants, all these different medications, and they still just don't find other approaches. But there's something about you that you've gone, that didn't feel right. It's not working. What's going on? And kept trying different ways of, self-curing yourself, self-healing. So what is it about you? What is it about you that makes you want to, as you said, just try different approaches? But is that, I don't know, why did you want to keep going? Why didn't you give up?
I don't know. I intuitively felt within it just didn't feel right. It's like an innate drive that I'm really grateful and honored to have within me. It's something that when I look around my family, I see this incredible drive and approach to life. And I think the people around you that you're surrounded with, you can develop models of them. And I was really inspired and saw how powerful they were. And then you look at other people out there in their everyday lives who are happy, they're calm, they're peaceful. And I'd experienced states of that. But I think when I think about it now, the largest thing was when I got to those extreme levels of pain, extreme levels of nerves and anxiety. I never wanted another human being to experience that. That's honestly, I was writing down today, like, what's one of my whys? Why do I do this? I want to alleviate that sensation and that state from as many people as I can. These states of anxiety and low self-worth, these states of being depressed. And that really drove me along my journey. I'm like, how can I become educated to assist other people out of this? And that's why I started PTing. I did exercise for people because it made me feel good. I wanted to make other people feel good as well. So maybe that's what innately was underneath my journey of just keeping on going and going and going.
Yeah. And as you said, environment and the people that you're spending time with. Is that a quote that I see up in the corner there of the screen? What's that?
Yeah, that's my beautiful partner. It says, be silly, be honest, be kind.
Beautiful. My whole place is filled with little quotes like that. I love it. And that's, see, our environment is so important. It's just that inner, as you said, you know, that repetition or those thoughts of positive psychology of what Tony Robbins talks about. It's just feeding our mind. Our brain is going to take in information whether we like it or not. Why don't we kind of choose what we put into our mind, you know, like what we put into our body? It's so key. And what you mentioned before, I can totally relate.
Look at this.
Oh, you've got more. Here we go. Yep. Sure, a lot of people.
That's my board.
Yep. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, awesome, man. Awesome. That's what I like to see. You're walking your talk. That's it. And I was the exact same, going through some similar challenges growing up and having times of addiction and times of, you know, depression and things like that, where I knew that in my head, I was like, if I can get over this, it was kind of like a little deal that I made with the creator. It was like, if I can get over this, I promise to share this with other people. And that's how I was at rock bottom many times. And I was like, if I get over this, I will help other people do this. And I did. I figured out the way to do it. And then I'm kind of in this realm now of health coaching where I'm sharing this stuff with other people. It's this weird journey it's taken me on. But I want to talk about addiction a little bit more. And then I want to get into the patterns because it's so important to break these patterns.
100%.
Like, what are some other addictions? Like, if it's not alcohol or drugs, what are some other addictions people are going through today?
It can be food, it can be sex, it can be gambling. One of the most common ones for males is porn. Like, we've got that stimulus to the brain, which is just so abnormal. That runs rampant, and that's like socially accepted. There's a bit of a stigma to it. It's like, ooh, it's something you don't talk about, but that is running rampant. Food, like, is just something that is so widely accepted and available, so it's very easy to draw upon that. Exercise. I used exercise as an addiction as well, as I'm sure so many people do. I was so addicted to it that I would injure my body as a result. Like, it was just such a thirst that had to be filled. So it can be in all areas of life. Facebook, these things. This is an addiction right here. We actually do hypnotherapy around mobile phone addiction and obsession, because that's one of the common ones that exists now.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So what are some of these patterns that you're saying before, where you were, you mentioned you were having some of the antidepressants and things like that, but you found yourself in social situations still feeling these symptoms a little bit. Or when you get off, I've had friends who are getting off medication, or clients that are getting off medication, and it's so important to be understanding or aware of these triggers and patterns. Can you share a little bit more about that?
I agree, 100%. They've shown in some studies that antidepressants don't do anything. They've shown in others that they do work. And don't want to debate about that, because I think For some people, they're like a bridge to get from point A to point B. But you're correct. For me, myself, it just numbed. It numbed what was underneath. So I did feel a bit more confident because that anxiety was numb, that actual sensation in the body. However, I would still feel nervous in environments that triggered those patterns. And a pattern can be developed literally, and I've been talking about it in the video series I've been creating, like you could be a child in school in year 5 and you stand up to talk and someone goes, shut up, sit down, and you sit down. It can be something as simple as that. And I know it might seem trivial, but if that anchors a strong emotional charge into your nervous system, that can then create a pattern which is under the surface and you have no idea about it. But obviously there can be more difficult traumatic things that people go through, but it can even be something as simple as that, and that people have no idea.
Look, I've been really understanding my own addictions lately, particularly around food, and I use food as a comfort or a celebration or a way of to kind of, escape. And that was kind of my thing growing up. It was like anytime I felt stressed or worried or I didn't fit in or lonely and things like that, my friend was food. And I find that so many people are addicted to food these days, and it's okay. I guess it's just acknowledging it's okay to have these addictions. And once you kind of know that you have something up, like say where people are, I guess smoking might be the obvious one, or maybe anger. Are there emotions that you can be addicted to too?
Oh, 100%. I don't know if you've read Joe Dispenza's work, but he talks about the fact that our bodies become addicted to that chemical response within. So when someone goes, oh, I'm not going to be angry anymore, I'm not going to be nervous anymore, I'm going to do it, and they walk out, their body will start to get withdrawals from that old state that they were in. How crazy is that? Like your body will literally hold on to that going, oh, this is homeostasis, and it holds on to it. So yeah, 100%.
And so as someone's maybe listening right now, or over the next couple of weeks, as someone's watched this, and as they kind of value become more self-aware of their own addictions, what's the next step? Like, is there a process of going, okay, I'm slightly addicted to anger right now, or I've got a porn habit right now, or I'm loving too much ice cream at nighttime right now, or cigarettes, or alcohol. What's the first step someone should do? What's, from your experience, a healthier approach to working with this?
I believe that the first one that comes to mind for me is community. You gotta tell someone. You gotta develop some accountability. Like some people might have a lot of willpower and they just stop it like that, and then you would move on to step 2. But for most people, step 1 is just tell someone. Authentically open up and show them how you're feeling and what you're experiencing, and say, this is a change I want to make in my life. Because I've found with some clients, if they go and try and do things themselves, the patterns can just come back in and they fall back into that behavior. So as you would be aware, you want to surround yourself with, you become the average of the 5 people that you spend your most time with, right? So you want to try and associate with people who are going to help you hold to that new standard, that new behavior that you want to be creating. So that's one of the first ones. The second one is anchoring. You need to anchor, because I think as humans, one of our biggest things we do is forget. And every time you go back into addiction, I believe it's because you've forgotten. Because I did it 1,000 times with alcohol and drugs. I was like, I'm not going to drink again. Think about how many people do that. They have a hangover. I'm not going to drink again. It's just horrible. And then next weekend, they're smashed and they're on the ground.
Never again. I'm never drinking. And then the next day, someone goes, come on, let's go out, my shout. And they're like, oh, I've done it. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Oh, gosh. So we forget. We're forgetting the pain that is associated to these things. Okay.
100%. So what can people do to anchor, like remembering into their home, into their life, to create sustained change? And that could be like the vision boards that we've spoken about. Put a vision board up showing how you want to be. you being healthy, free of addictions, free, like a picture of someone being free of shackles, like that on a daily basis is going to go into your subconscious mind. And your reticular activating system, as you might be aware of, that feeds on that type of stuff. So it's, for example, if you want to buy a red Ferrari, you'll start to see red Ferraris everywhere. If you like look online. Same deal with this. You want to be free of an addiction, you're going to start to look for opportunities everywhere where you can be free of that if you have a reference point, an anchor to draw upon.
What about references? I totally believe in that. What about references of like reminding ourselves of, because it's easy to go, okay, cool, yeah, this is my ideal life, my ideal day, I'm feeling amazing, feeling feelings and that type of thing. But that's still also kind of helping us forget about those nights where they've gone out and spent all that money or felt like shit the next day, things like that. Have you ever thought about like, how do you remind yourself of those negative times? Because you don't want to kind of suppress them. Or do we want to keep remembering those? Because for me, when I'm working with clients, we do a before photo, take a photo of that and you put that on the fridge or that on the wherever it is, because pain is a big motivator as well. Because it's, oh, I don't want to look like that. So do you recommend that for addiction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do people go about that?
Definitely, yeah. So if the pain is bigger from not change, if the pain is larger from you not changing compared to you, well, you know what I'm saying. So if it's more painful to keep doing it than it is to stop, you're going to be more motivated to stop. You have to really, how's my life going to be 3 months from now if I don't stop? How's my life going to be 6 months from now? 1 year from now? How's it going to affect my relationships, my finances, my health? Looking at all of these areas and really going, how's it going to sit into this? What am I going to look like if I keep falling back into these patterns over and over again? Yeah. Yeah. The next thing I'd recommend is, obviously, if it's at the point where you've told someone you're trying these types of modalities, draw upon a specialist of some sort. You know, I believe that I call a psychologist as like a physiotherapist of the mind. So if some of your neural pathways in your brain are tight or they're weak, a psychologist or a therapist or someone that you can talk about these things with, they can help to strengthen the pathways that you want, and they can help to weaken the pathways as well.
Whoa, how do you do that? That's fascinating. So you can strengthen your neural pathways for certain habits.
Yeah, you could essentially talk about it like neuroplasticity, right? So nerves that fire together, wire together. So if you've got someone holding you accountable to engage in the activities that are going to fire the pathways that you want, that's going to steer you more in that direction. And if you have someone to hold you accountable, whether it's a friend or a specialist, away from the bad pathways so that they're not firing and wiring together, that's going to weaken that part of the mind as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's on a conscious level. And for some people, the conscious level isn't strong enough. Then that's when we tap into the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is where the patterns reside. And this is where therapies such as NLP, like you're aware of, therapies such as hypnotherapy, therapies such as kinesiology, they all tap into this subconscious level of being, which is where you can have patterns that you're not even aware of, and they control your behavior on a daily basis.
Yeah, dude. It's for me, I'm just like, as a coach, I'm like, I love this stuff. You know, it's so fascinating, the human mind. Now, which way do we want to go? But for anybody, what other advice do you have? So for hypnotherapy, can you give us a little bit of a rundown on that and why that's so powerful?
Yeah, so the hypnotherapy works on the subconscious mind, right? And everything you've ever felt, everything that you've ever heard, and everything that you've ever experienced gets stored into that part of your mind. And it's like they have an analogy of an iceberg in the ocean. And your conscious mind literally sticks above the surface here. And your subconscious mind comprises of underneath here, which is so powerful that it controls your breathing, your heart rate, your digestion. So it Okay, we're back.
We're back. I'll just edit that together.
Cool, bro.
So,
Cool.
yeah, cool. So you're mentioning how hypnosis works.
Correct. So hypnotherapy works on the subconscious mind, and everything you've ever experienced, felt, or heard gets stored there. And these experiences and things that happen to you create a pattern. They create a subconscious pattern, and it's like a survival mechanism underneath the surface. And they use the analogy of like an iceberg. So your conscious mind comprises of this much above the water, and the subconscious mind is all the way underneath here. They say that 90 to 95% of the mind is the subconscious and the rest is the conscious. So it really has a lot of power. And what will happen is with these patterns, they're developed to protect us. So anxiety can be developed in foresight of stopping you from going into an environment where you can be hurt. It's a survival mechanism, right? It's like a fight or flight response. We have those to protect us from predators out in the wild, but with anxiety, if it's a regular pattern that's there, it's like we've got that protecting us from predators in our everyday life, but they're not even around. And it's the same with the depressed states. We can fall into that pattern and it becomes our home, and we regularly strengthen that and we're not even aware of it. So what hypnotherapy does is we weaken those patterns. We chop them at the pass. I kind of use the analogy that every time you strengthen a pattern, it's like you're developing, it's like a truck driving through the mud, creating a deeper and deeper groove in the mud. And that's where you get a strong pattern of anxiety or depression. And what hypnotherapy does, it fills that mud in. So whenever you come up to this old situation that would have triggered you before, you no longer flow into that mud. You can choose a new pathway that serves you better. And that's what happened with me when I'd go into those situations that I used to be nervous or anxious in. It's like, and I didn't fall into a groove. It's like I was just there and I had choice. Yeah.
How long does that take to sink in? Well, speaking of sand, but how long does it take for the sand to sink in so you can not get stuck in the mud?
It can be anywhere from like 1 to 4 sessions. It depends on the depth of the problem. If someone has a very light thing that they want to work through, it means we don't have as much dirt to fill in. But if someone's got a pathway that's been strengthened every day for say 50 years, it's going to take a bit more work. There's going to be a lot more neural shifts that need to happen within the subconscious mind. Yeah.
And tell us like a couple of different examples of, your clients' success stories.
Yeah. So I've had clients that came in and they were scared shitless of public speaking. One of them had to give presentations in her workspace, and they were like, all right, you've got to speak in front of 200 to 300 people. And she'd always hated it. But I reflected to her and I said, you've got so much knowledge though, right? And she was like, yeah, I've got the knowledge, but this fear just comes upon me. So after doing 3 sessions together, she went up and owned it. And as you would be aware, with Tony Robbins, he says, in terms of your state, if you change the meaning, that can change how your experience is completely. So with a bit of coaching, I said, all right, if we have that energy when we're walking up to present, because you're still going to have that, otherwise you're just going to be a sloth just sitting there at the front. We're still going to have a bit of that energy. let's change the meaning of that to excitement. It's like a performer when they get up on stage. A performer doesn't get up and go, oh, these are nerves. They go, this is excitement. This is good energy. So we really brought down that pattern and weakened it so it wasn't as strong, but there was still a bit there, and that's excitement. So she went up and owned it. That was incredible. I had another lady who had a fear of driving, and she would struggle. Like, she would basically feel like she's trapped on a road when she'd get along them. She'd be like, I can't get out. So we did 2 sessions, and she was basically out back on the road again. Once again, she had that natural energy. And I said, it's never going to go. We're not robots, but it's relating to it as energy, as excitement. If you were numb on the road, you'd crash. So you've got to have an awareness and an understanding of it. And then another client that I can think of is dealing with anxiety, because that's like really one of my passions. You get caught into the anxious patterns and it can rule your life, particularly a young one that I can think of, because that's when the anxiety was hitting me the most, when I was 16, 17. And we did some work around shyness. And as a result, he went in and he made friends at the new institution that he was going to. That's the type of stuff that really touches my heart, because when you're 16 or 17, you're trying to navigate the world and figure out what bloody day it is. And it's hard enough trying to meet people if you've got like a nervous shield that's over you all the time. So we're able to deconstruct that. And that, I love that work as well.
No, that's epic. That's epic. I've got a couple more questions for you before we wrap up, but how can people get in touch with you?
So they can look me up on Facebook under Prime Wellness. So my name's Peter Williams, and you can attach it to that. Or on Instagram, it's Peter Prime Wellness on Insta.
Nice. Check it out, guys. I'm blown away. For me, I'm like, I want to learn more about this, you know? Just, it's such a common, these behaviors, everyone has their own thing going on. And I'm fascinated by human potential. I'm fascinated by living a life of fulfillment. You know, what does it take to feel fulfilled? And if we have these unconscious blocks and the baggage that's holding us down and we don't even know about it, you know, we could get to the end of our lives being like, oh, you know, I could have done this, I could have done that. Regret is just, it's horrible, right? So I have a couple of questions around health and wellness, man. Like, you're a health coach like me. I'm sure that lights you up. Give us a little rundown of what you believe around the human body and food and movement and stuff like that. Yeah, what's your philosophy on the whole thing?
Yeah, the human body is a perfectly designed machine, right? Your heart beats naturally, you breathe naturally. We don't have to control this stuff. So it's the perfectly oiled machine. And I believe that we need to create an environment that's conducive for our bodies, and that can be in what we're eating. For some people, it could be eating a whole food diet. For others, it could be eating a vegan diet. I don't really judge diets anymore. I judge just having nutrients and vitamins and minerals and how it sits with the person's body. As you would be aware, we learn about bio-individuality. One man's food is another man's poison. So when I first started healing myself from my autoimmune condition, I was like, paleo is the way. Everyone needs to do paleo. Paleo worked for me. Everyone must do it. And then I got into the, because we're so passionate about it, right? And then I got into the autoimmune protocol, which eliminates things like grains. Well, paleo eliminates grains, but the autoimmune protocol eliminates nuts, eggs, nightshades, what else? Even coffee for some people. And these things can create immune stimulation in people with arthritis or autoimmune conditions. And once again, anyone who came in with an autoimmune condition, I was like, you need to do the autoimmune protocol. That's the way to go. So my philosophy now is
it's
just
like religion sometimes, isn't it? It's just a headache.
I know.
It's just preaching from the, it's tough. And look, I think it's okay at times, and I value people who do preach, because at least they've got the balls to do it. You know, it's better than sitting on the couch and saying nothing. But so then what happens? Sorry.
I agree. I think let's use the knowledge available to us and then intuitively tune into how our body is performing. Intuitively tap into that. As I said, for some people, eating vegan can not agree with their body. For others, eating paleo cannot agree with their body. So really finding a space of stillness and having some guidance around that. And as a health coach, I like that I can be a coach on the side, because when someone's in amongst it, they might not have as much perspective on what their body is agreeing with. So us being on the side, we can kind of objectively go, all right, how's your reaction? How's your sleep? How's your mood and so forth when you're dealing with that food? And we can analyze it. Yeah.
So what do you eat? What's your diet like today? Because I know you love your broth.
Yeah, so I love my broth, eh? Yeah, the broths are the way. Yeah. So that's become one of my common go-tos now after doing the GAPS protocol. I'm sure you've heard of GAPS, which is where it's similar to paleo, but you really strip back. So you're not even taking in things like fiber. It's literally just the liquid and the bone broth, which is extremely healing. So I've taken that on, and I don't really have grains. I'll have limited amounts of nuts. I just have a lot of fruit and veg and meat, like just the way I believe that lots of us eat. Keep out of the packaged stuff. Get the stuff that grows from the ground, grows from the trees, and that is organically pastured and raised. That's kind of the makeup of how I eat now. And eating high levels of fat as well. I think fat is underestimated and it's misunderstood, because when I eat fat, my energy is just stable for the day. I've got clear mood. I'm grounded, and I don't get these sugar cravings like I used to. I don't get these cravings to eat. It's like a nice dull feeling of I could probably eat now. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And then
that's what I'm so passionate about, is like we're so controlled by food, or controlled by these external things, whether it's going out drinking or these addictions, or just going out and spending money or whatever it is. And it's, getting our health in check allows us to be more in control rather than these external things controlling us. Anyway, keep going. Yeah. I love this stuff.
And movement is key. Yeah. Like being a person, I love that. Resistance training. And this is, I use bioindividuality. One man's exercise is another man's poison. Like everyone shouldn't necessarily be going and doing resistance training. Like it's bloody beautiful. I studied about it. But if somebody's quite stressed and they're quite anxious and they're in more of a yang state, in Chinese medicine, they talk about yin being more restorative and peaceful, and yang being kind of charged and masculine. If someone's quite yang and anxious and they go to the gym and they get even more stressed and pumped, that can kind of throw you out. So find that balance. Let's utilize activities such as yoga, such as Tai Chi and Qi Gong, or martial arts, or outdoors. Just movement. Movement nourishes our cells and it nourishes our body. And then if we come back to an attitude of where you asked what could you do about addictions and stuff, movement is one of the best things you can do, because as you'd be aware, they've shown that it's even more powerful than antidepressants. It's incredibly strong for producing serotonin and endorphins and all of these feel-good guys within the body. Yeah. In terms of the mind, I believe that meditation is crucial for myself. I'll go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week. I'll do yoga 1 to 2 times a week. And then with meditation or priming, as you'd be aware, those are daily practices. I feel that I talk about the analogy like we brush our teeth before we go out and see people throughout the day, right? And I kind of talk about meditation like brushing the mind. You wouldn't go out into the world with a smelly mind, would you? And meditation doesn't need to be sitting like a monk on a mountain closing your eyes. It can be whatever it is to you. It could be priming like Tony Robbins. It could be like that. It could be literally drawing some art. It could be listening to music. But how do you stop and nourish yourself and align your mind so that you choose your reactions throughout the day rather than just falling for the entire day?
So important. Yeah. So important. Yeah. Give us a little rundown of. You keep going. Sorry, I interrupted. You go. Yep.
No. And I was just going to say, in terms of the in our life, like we all have basic human needs that we need to be met. And you would be aware of this. So Tony Robbins talks about it. Some people need certainty, or they need variety, or they need significance, or connection, or contribution, or what's the last one? Contribution or growth. Mm-hmm. So with all of these areas, you need to make sure that you're nourishing those to create a healthy state of being. And addictions, lots of the time, addictions come about because we get some of these needs met on a regular basis. So for me, rather than my addictions of being met from alcohol and drugs, I meet them now with a nourishing life of exercise, meditation, going out in nature, and I've basically got those needs met. So it's I know you like to go out into nature and ground yourself. I like to put my feet in the sand, put my feet in the grass, in the dirt. That's just an incredible way to start the day as well.
Amazing. And starting your day, I'm really big on starting your day off on the right foot. And morning routine, how important is morning routine and evening routine? Fill us in. 100%.
It's like getting out of bed and just falling. Like I use the analogy that I used to do it in work when I was working in my other jobs. I'd get out of bed and just fall for the whole day, just catching myself, just hoping that I can bloody stop at some moment. But when I meditate or have a self-nourishing activity, whatever it is for you, it's like you stop and you choose your steps for the rest of the day rather than just falling. And then at night, I agree with you. You need to kind of close it off with some practice. It could be meditation or reading or just slowing down the mind. I love having baths. Baths are golden with magnesium, very restorative. But like I talk to people about, lots of us use our phones or we use our computers or we use our televisions in the nighttime, and that can throw your whole body out of whack. So one of my big closing down procedures is to bring down the lights and to stay off that technology within an hour of bedtime. And the nights where I don't, I feel it the next day in terms of my sleep. Yeah. So starting off how you mean to go on and closing off and nourishing yourself so you restore overnight.
Beautiful. And then any tips on sleep? I know that sleep's so important. So what are your, couple of tips for sleep, man?
Yeah. So I've just spoken about that. So technology, staying away from technology within an hour to 2 hours of bedtime. It depends how sensitive you are to the light. For some people, it might not affect you. It's not for everyone. But just minimizing that light exposure at night time, minimizing charging activities. Like for some people, going to the gym and pumping quite hard, that could send them to sleep. For others, it might charge them up so they stay awake and don't sleep as deeply. So it's that yang activity in that yin period of the day. So just honoring that and listening to your body. And then the final thing that I would recommend is caffeine. And it's quite an obvious one. You're having caffeine near bed. Some of us have higher sensitivities than others. So maybe we should keep it further away from bedtime. Just honor that.
And then fasting. Are you a fan of fasting? All right.
I've gotten largely into this because of your content and your work that you've put out there. So I'm really grateful to you. You've shed quite a lot of light on a lot of things that I've started utilizing. Wim Hof, for example. I love the Wim Hof. But fasting, oh my God, how easy is life when you fast? I do it now where in the morning I'll not eat. So I won't eat from dinner the night before till lunchtime the next day, and my mind is clear. My body is fluid. My joints feel great, and the mood is just balanced. It's bloody beautiful. So yeah. I think it's like we've got the engine, right? Our digestive system is an engine. And you need to turn the car off sometimes. You don't just have it switched on all day. And every time we're putting food in, we're starting the engine up again. So it's good to just give it a rest with the fasting. What's your interpretation of it? What are some of the other benefits that people can get from it?
I'm really big on hormones at the moment. And, to look young, feel good, be youthful, have the physical body that you want to have. for as long as we like. I want to be doing, you know, Olympic lifting and pull-ups and handstands when I'm 100, 150, hopefully. So I know that it comes back to hormones, and there's tribes in Africa who eat once every couple of days. Maybe that's the only time they get to eat. I get it. But these guys are old and strong and, you know, warrior-like their whole lives. So I like to study what works for some people, and I like to integrate that into this Western world, and abstaining from certain things, fasting, and not being tempted and stimulated by food or porn or spending money or anger and, you know, these different things. Fasting for me brings it back and helps me tread consciously rather than falling, as you said, which I love that analogy. That's awesome. You are so, as you like, you know, I'm learning so much about you right now, and everyone must be loving this. We got to kind of wrap it up in a minute. You're so holistic, you know, your mindfulness practices, talking about anxiety, stress, depression, addiction, hypnotherapy, NLP, man, like that mindset stuff is like, whoa, you know, and then you're understanding the nutrition, the components of that, and obviously understanding so much more that we haven't even touched upon, but on the exercise component, you know, you've got all those components, dude. So I'm curious to know, what do you want to learn next? What's next for you? Why are you excited for what it is that you do? What are you going to learn? What's next for you?
Well, I'm still studying naturopathy. So I'm still studying to become a naturopath in the future. So that's going on in the background as well, because I want to integrate herbal medicine as well as some of the practices and the knowledge that naturopaths acquire. Because in terms of the most healing that I had with my immune system and my inflammatory arthritis, naturopaths did that for me. By them using the herbs to clear out the environment in my digestive system, that's when my body stopped being inflamed all the time. So naturopathy as well. Yeah. But I'm always learning, always growing, always reading. As Tony Robbins says, feed your mind on a daily basis. If you continue to grow, you won't get stagnant. So always growing, always growing.
Nice. And lastly, man, what do people have to do? I know that Sydney's a bit of a bubble. Obviously, we're pretty healthy and pretty hip, and so a lot of linked on people. But if someone's just starting out on this journey and realizing there's a lot of things they got to change, maybe with their mindset or their diet or their movement, what do you think people should start doing?
Be kind to yourself. Be nourishing to yourself and honor where you're at. Don't set yourself massive goals where you're going to fall and you know, really struggle to continue. We talk about the comfort zone, right? There's the comfort zone, and then outside of that is your growth zone. And then further outside of that is your freak out zone. So whatever changes you want to make in your life, just step out of your comfort zone into the growth zone. Just step out into that on a regular basis. Find people who have knowledge in the area that you want to work through. Find someone to model yourself off. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's billions of people on this planet. What you're experiencing, yes, it's individual and it's unique, but it's probably happened to a lot of other people on the planet. So draw upon those resources and get out of your comfort zone just a little bit on a regular basis, because how you show up in one area of your life, you're going to show up in the rest of your areas of life. So an example is, if someone wants to build their confidence at work, go and join a soccer team or a sports team, or join yoga or join an activity. You don't need to directly work in that area to create change. As you develop confidence over here, you'll start to develop confidence in your work over here. So think outside of the box. You don't need to always just go straight for that one point. You can work in it in more of a gentle, nourishing way, because people are already so under the pump right now. You know, they're under the pump. So let's try and make it as achievable and realistic as possible.
Oh, pearls of wisdom. Pearls. Yeah. Peter, thank you so much for your time, brother. Everybody check out his website and his Instagram. I'll link it below and also in the comments below in the description. Oh, thanks for your time, man. Again, I learned so much. I'm sure everyone at home is just blown away. So if you're in Sydney, you need a hypno session or some health coaching, hit him up. And yeah, that's it. It's always weird ending these interviews. I'm like, how do I do it? But thanks, dude. Any final comments at all?
Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you very much to you for the opportunity. Like, when I first met you at that workshop, I was really inspired by the work that you were doing, and really saw you as a model for in the industry of just helping and serving people. So thank you to you. Just a big shout out to you, and for the work that you do with these videos and educating and giving back. Like, yeah, final words of thank you to you for contributing, and I'm just grateful that I'm able to serve and to give back to people with this video as well.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah.
My pleasure, brother.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. See ya.